Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta, no matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be. Thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. You guys ask, I deliver. This one's a special one. Let's rock and roll. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. Squaddies and everyone listening, welcome to another episode of the Highbury Squad. To those listening on our audio platforms and on replay, this is on replay because it's pre-recorded. Well done. It's been a long week already. Here we go. Joining me today, you asked for him and I sent out a kind email to him. Maybe not as kind as his tweet about us, but we're going to get stuck into it. Ian Doyle from Liverpool Echo, welcome to Squad Central, and thank you for accepting our invitation to come on the show.
A pleasure. It can't be as bad as what I get from Liverpool fans, believe me.
Okay, so let's talk about that just a little bit, because even as a journalist, 20 plus years now, you've been covering Liverpool, seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you know our channel, and I've been covering the game for a long time, Arsenal in particular, you know, for forever. However, you do get it from your own fans, sometimes even when you say something complimentary. I'd love to hear it from that side a little bit too, because no matter what, you can't please everybody, can you?
No, you can't, no matter what. But you kind of learn that over time. I mean, I always say that from a journalistic point of view, as you say, I've been doing this for 20 odd years, and social media in the last 10 to 15 years has become a thing. So I'd already got my feet under the table and knew what I was doing. I feel kind of a little bit sorry for the youngsters who are coming through trying to make their way in journalism, and they write something then they may be quite proud of, and then 10,000 people turn around and say to them, "You're an idiot," just because they didn't agree with what you said, or "You're a rubbish journalist." Thing is, there's a total difference between not agreeing with somebody's opinion and saying they're doing the job wrong. It's two completely different things, but on social media, they tend to come across as the same thing. So you write something that somebody doesn't agree with, everybody thinks you're rubbish at your job, which I'm pretty sure we're going to get onto in a minute.
Can I just say that you were rubbish at your job that day? Let me read something. I'll read it to you. And I know, look, I'm going to ask all the questions the fans want me to. Otherwise, they'll kill me, won't they? Right.
Yeah.
And I have to ask you too, because I've always felt that Arsenal and Liverpool, over the last 20 odd plus, maybe 30 years since you had won the title, there was a similar storyline, right? Of course, our storyline is not the same as yours in Europe. You know, we lust after that type of success in Europe. So I felt like, because I had just spoken to the Anfield Rap guys for the game, and Stevie Nicol came on for the post game, and both of them felt that Arsenal are so not lucky. And the Anfield Rap guys totally disagreed with what you had written and what you said. And here's what it was. Who will win the title? 8 points clear going into the final 2 months of the season. It will require arguably one of the worst capitulations in Premier League history for Arsenal not to win the title. The fact is, so much has gone for the Gunners this season. Lack of injuries, troubles at their rivals, general officiating decisions, teams not taking them seriously, minimal pressure and expectation from the national media that their ability to take advantage of situations that has been forged for a few years under Arteta is now bearing fruit. In any normal season, they'd be fourth. But this isn't the normal season, and a failure to finish the job now would damage the reputation of all involved considerably. Arsenal can't blow it now. Do you still mean all of those things you said?
What I would say is this has obviously come from a point of view where if you actually go, the good thing about being a journalist, everything I've written is out there, tweets and everything, it's there. So you can go and check all of this.
I do. I have some of your tweets as well. They're not very nice.
It's all right. But then you can go back years, and I'll start at the very, very, very beginning of it all. Is when Liverpool were going for the title in 2019 and they ended up getting 90 odd points and finished second. There was loads of people who were saying they'd blown it. And me and my colleagues were like, hang on, they got 97 points here. They literally couldn't have done hardly any much more to actually win it. And people saying, yeah, they bottled it. They lost one game all season. So when Arsenal were at the start of the season, say about October, November time, when they're kind of getting, it looked as though they weren't going to fall away. I started putting these kind of not sarcastic but ironic tweets of like, "Oh, Arsenal can't blow it now. They're definitely going to win the league," kind of thing. And quite a few Liverpool fans got it, but a lot of them didn't. And like, we're on about there's still 30 odd games to go, 25. And people understood that I was just making reference to what a lot of the national media was saying about Liverpool. But since
Hmm.
then, it's kind of like taken on a kind of its own little thing. And I know you're going to pick apart one by one the stuff that I said. What I would also say about that article was written now a month ago. And what it was is that we got asked at the end of a working day, can you all just write who's going to win the league, top four, this, that, and the other? So it's all part of a big piece that was written. We didn't know where it was going to go because everybody across we're owned by the company called Reach PLC. So they own a lot of regional newspapers, and along with the Mirror and the Express and the Star and national newspapers like that. So
Hmm.
we were asked to provide our little input. So I thought, well, I actually think Arsenal win the league, which I thought a lot of people would have said Man City for a start. So I was actually backing Arsenal to win the league. Then I thought about it and I did go, well, they've had quite a lot of things have gone their way. And I didn't expect it to be, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks later that somebody, an Arsenal fan, picked up on it. And then it came from then. It just happened to be just before the game against
Hmm.
Liverpool. So there'd been an international break and they'd all played a game, at least one game since then. So
Yeah.
I'd completely forgotten about it.
Well,
I
we
was like,
reminded you,
I,
don't
I come onto
you?
Twitter. I come onto Twitter one day and was like, what on earth?
You poked the gunner bear, didn't you? And the cannon
Well,
went
a little
off.
bit. Well, as I say, Liverpool fans, anyone who follows me on Twitter will know that I'm quite prone to doing that, but not in a nasty way. I know don't do it without any justification. I got in trouble with some United fans, I think the week before, Manchester United fans the week before, by saying some not very complimentary things about the attitude of Bruno Fernandes on the pitch, but I wasn't saying anything that nobody else was saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have
So
one of your tweets here from December. Is it December?
it would,
Or yeah, hard to see how Arsenal lose the league
yeah.
from this
That,
position. Not many games left. Fate remains on their side. You remember that one?
that's it. See now do you see where I'm coming from with this
Well,
now?
now these ones I did chuckle at this one. That should be the Premier League title for Arsenal now. That was in January with
Yeah.
only half the seasons. Listen,
So
I joke as well, but this isn't
yeah.
stemming from this, is it?
Oh
I mean, because
no.
it's definitely not stemming from this.
That, well, that finished 4-4. That was a good game.
That was a
I mean,
great game.
if I'd been a journalist, I think the Michael Thomas one would have been bad because I've had to just control A delete and just start again when I was writing in the last minute. That's all we're bothered about these days. It's no, don't nobody score in the last minute. So I'm quite happy to go through each point that I've
Let's
made
do
though.
it. Let's do it
If you want to,
because I want to give kind of like where I was thinking from it too, which is why
yeah,
when I wrote to you as well, by the way, Ian, I felt that, well, let's go through these bits, right? So the first thing that I think is really off is the choking bottling part, right?
that well
Be-
now you know the context of what I'm saying there, what
right.
that's about. So
Be,
it wasn't
be,
necessarily going Arsenal. It was
right.
more the
So
other people who say that if somebody drops it from this, with that kind of lead, they must be bottling it. Because we're going to come on in a bit to Manchester City, and we'll. In fact, do you want to deal with? I know we'll go back to them. Do you want to deal with Manchester
just tell
City
me
now?
what, let's just have a
Yeah,
conversation like we're down the
yeah.
pub rather
Well,
than me
well,
throw questions and
in
rip it up piece by piece, because I can rip it to shreds piece by piece, but you and I both, like, journalists and stuff, I want to have a very healthy conversation with you, because I do feel that, for me, choking and bottling it is this, right? 7-0 losing to your biggest rivals and getting absolutely humiliated. That to me is a bottle and a choke job. For the youngest team in the Premier League, with a cone manager, as everyone has labeled him, to be where they're at against that Manchester City with Erling Haaland, with all the money, with the most genius manager, in modern times, one of, and we're here. So talk me through it.
a couple of things. I think Man United lost 7-0 to Liverpool because they're not very good. More than anything else, I don't necessarily. I think they probably
Not
are
going to
top four.
disagree.
Yeah, they are top four, but they're not quite first or second. Arteta, again, look at all my tweets. When going back to when he first started. Also, I used to cover Everton for 18 years, and this is when Arteta was
Oh,
playing
poor
for
you.
Everton. Yeah, but it's when Arteta was playing for Everton, and he won't remember me now, but I used to like cover them every other week, and So I got to
Mm.
kind of know him and interviewed him quite a few times when he was a player. He's actually one of the few players who's pulled me up on a match report and he said something I'd written about him, even though it was kind of complimentary in a way by saying he played okay, but not up to his usual standards. And he just walking past me in the
What did he
tunnel one
say?
day.
Do you remember?
Yeah, he said something like, "Not up to my usual standards." What were you on about? Something, something along those lines. So that's not usual for players, even back then, to pick you up on what you've
Mm-hmm.
written. So obviously a scholar of the game, and he knows it to read, of course. But Arteta, Man City, he obviously was at Man City, wasn't he, for quite some time on the
Yes.
coaching staff. And even when he first came in, he was having a few troubles. When they played Liverpool, and I think there was a game the other year where they got beat 4-0. I remember saying at
Yeah.
the time that it's okay, Arsenal lost again at Anfield, but they're a different kind of Arsenal. You can see that Arteta, you can see what he wants to do and what he want to try. But when he first came in, he didn't have the players to do it. And I think that's something that's changed over time. And I got a little bit of grief off some fans saying Liverpool only won the title in the COVID season because of COVID, but they were like 20 odd points clear before the lockdown. But what did happen in them is, of course, Arsenal won the FA Cup. And I do wonder whether that kept Arteta in a job. And I don't know whether having no fans there against Man City in the semi, Chelsea in the final,
Oh
you
no,
don't
the
know.
FA Cup gave him a lot of
Yeah,
love coupons. That was
yeah,
massive.
yeah. So
Like Ten Hag's love coupons now with the Carling Cup.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So it
Mhm.
got Arteta in, and I actually think having going to the Emirates, every year or sometimes twice a year when they're playing, the atmosphere has changed over the last couple of years. And again, you can have a look because it's all there. I've written and said, well, something's happening here at Arsenal. You can tell because the fans are starting to believe in it, this, that, and the other. So I've never thought that they weren't going to become a good team. And obviously, when what happened towards the end of last year, that last season, I should say, that kind of the old fears were risen again, were they a little bit the way that it kind of fell away in trying to get in the top four. But
Mhm.
what's interesting about Arsenal this season is that they had a very good pre-season, didn't they? Won a lot
Yes.
of games, I seem to recall. And everyone was saying, well, it's only pre-season. What does that really matter? But because it was so short, in the same way for Liverpool, it became a negative because they didn't have a good one, and then they took that one into the season. Arsenal took that into the season, and the way that the season's been split up with the World Cup bang in the middle, which, by the way, explains why this has been a season not like any other. That's what that point is. Just basically, there's this
You
big,
should have made that
the
clearer.
big. Well, they should have known. To be fair,
You should have made it clearer, Mr.
there was
Doyle.
6 or 7 week gap in the middle where nobody knew how anybody was going to react. Nobody knew, and I actually thought at the time that it might not help Arsenal, but it's kind of not made really much difference to what they've done. So that's that. That's that point. So I think I'm not being nasty to Arsenal. It's funny when you read it out. It sounded way worse when you read it out than it felt in
Listen,
my
there's
head when I was writing
Ian, I
it.
don't know if you know here, but there's Jimmy Kimmel does this thing where he reads mean tweets, but he has the celebrity who it's about read them.
Yeah,
And when they read them, it's like, wow, that sounds harsh. And I mean, you got our backs up big time because I think Arsenal fans, for the first time in a long time, don't believe any of that to be true. And
I
I don't
think
think the table lies at this point in the season. So the lucky part, right? You know what's and you talk about we're lucky because other teams are unlucky, right? Do you know what I think is unlucky? And I'm showing you this just because I think this is really unlucky, right? You can't be more unlucky than Liverpool with, losing a title with a millimeter of a ball not going under over the line. This is unlucky. People can take the piss out of this all they like. How unlucky can you get with this moment? It's with Gerrard slipping. So unlucky for our audio listeners. I just shown the ball that didn't go over the line against City in the game a couple of seasons ago. Was it 3 seasons now? I can't,
it's 4 now. 4.
is it 4 seasons? Wow,
Yeah,
time flies. And the Gerrard slip, which, if that happened to us as Arsenal fans, I'm not. There's something you never get over. Those things are unlucky. I don't know if there's been that type of unluckiness for squads this season. At the start of the season, you went for a quadruple last year. Everyone's talking about, well, what are Liverpool going to do this year? City, of course, with Haaland, the Marvel comic book character. Nobody could wait to see how that was going to turn out. Chelsea and, kind of going into their next phase or whatever they were doing. The biggest mistake they made was getting rid of Tuchel because who knows where they would be now. And Tottenham, once again, the darlings because of Harry Kane would probably end up being Spursy. But all of this hope, all of this, and we weren't even in the conversation. We
well,
just weren't.
there's obviously a reason for that because of what happened towards the end of last season,
Mhm.
and I think that's fair enough. I don't think anyone was backing Arsenal to go for the title. What I would say about that, going back to the Manchester City point I was going to make before, is I think over the next couple of weeks, your Arsenal fans are going to realise what it's like to come up against Manchester City. I regard Manchester City as, in some ways, irrelevant in the sense that they're not the same as everybody else. Newcastle might have got some money now, and Chelsea have had some money for years. United have always had a bit, but I just think Manchester City are this completely utter different thing because they do have probably the best manager in the world, and the way that they play the game, they've been able to buy the right players. Is
Hmm.
I'm just looking at the injuries thing, which we're going to bring up. Yeah, Arsenal. I think on the last, I've got a table up here on this is before the international break. I think Arsenal got the 14th or 15th least amount of injuries in terms of days missing from players. Now the
But
top two,
also, Ian,
yeah,
one injury that was the most devastating of all.
I'm going to say Jesus.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
One player changes everything. You guys know that. You bought in two players and it got you the title, Van Dijk and Allison. You guys built from the front back. Those two players solidified you finally winning the title. Losing Jesus when he came in with that mentality and so much impact, he was the reason, really, the main reason why we were flying the way we were. And then to have Eddie and Nketiah come in and fill the gap like nothing happened. That that's not luck. That's hard work. That is being
I'm,
prepared.
I'm not saying that's lucky. I'm saying the fortune, if there's any over the injuries, is the fact that, as I say, forget Man City because we'll come back to them in a sec. Which two teams played the most games last season? Liverpool and Chelsea played like 60 odd games, and with no real break, they've both had the most injuries. And I know Chelsea have basically bought about three teams since then, which is just ridiculous. Liverpool haven't been able to do that. Liverpool are far and away got the most injuries. United have had quite a bit, and I think Tottenham over the last couple of weeks they've suddenly started getting quite a lot as well. I mean, Tottenham changed the manager. I don't know what's going on there, to be honest. You'll know more than I do
I
about
mean,
that.
look at all the managers that have changed.
Oh,
Getting rid of
yeah,
Rodgers, getting rid
yeah.
of
That
Conte.
just
They're all suffering.
it's just strange that. So
Mm.
I think the fortune. I don't think you can argue with the injuries one being slightly fortunate. But then I also think that's also comes back to last season where you weren't in Europe, didn't play as many games, you had good preparation. So that's not so much.
Well,
Not
we've
luck
lost Tommy.
anymore.
We
It's
lost
not luck.
Tomiyasu. We lost
It's
three
not luck.
major players last season, right? We lost Tomiyasu, Partey, Tierney. That was it. It was over. We've lost Thomas Partey for a few games this season. We've lost Tomiyasu completely for the season. We lost Ben White for a few games. We've lost Saliba. I mean, that is the spine of the team from the back to the front.
It's not like I can only give you Liverpool as an example. Liverpool have like lost players for 6 months at a time, and we're talking major players as well, like Luis
But when
Diaz.
you won the
Only
league,
just
that
come
had
back.
happened. That had happened previous. I guess my point is when Liverpool won the league, when Chelsea won the league, when City won the league, is it because everyone else is unlucky?
No, no,
And
no, I'm not. I'm not saying
right.
that because one team I've not mentioned in any of that is Man City, who are the team you are competing against for the title, and they're the ones that have got fewer injuries than almost everybody apart from Brighton. And the reason they can do that is because the way they play, they don't have to run around as much as other teams. They don't have to get involved in all these challenges, even stuff like that, because they've got this kind of freakish team with a freakish manager and all the players. And that goes back to why it's so difficult to overcome City, which is what I was just trying to say before.
Hmm.
We'll find out now over the next, I reckon, 8 games. And I also think it's almost started happening. And obviously, it was at Anfield when they played Liverpool the other week. And I can say, if you didn't think Liverpool were rubbish, if you saw the first half an hour, Liverpool have been terrible for a lot of games this season. So when it's 2-0, we were all going, this could be about 5 or 6 here. Liverpool
Hmm.
are hopeless. Every time Arsenal go forward, they look like they're going to score. And then, of course, it was the old, a lot's been made of it, I suppose, the Xhaka, Trent Alexander-Arnold incident, but that didn't really get the
Yeah, that
fact that
happens
Liverpool,
in every game. You
yeah,
guys really,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. The fact that Liverpool scored just before half time was the big difference.
exactly.
And second half, Liverpool were like, well, hang on, it's like the last 9 months didn't happen for both teams, actually. So, but you think, okay,
Ian, I want to tap into your experience as a Liverpool fan with the City
Liverpool
thing.
reporter, Liverpool reporter.
A Liverpool reporter.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. I do that with our ref as well. That comes on. He has a dodgy accent like you. Um, Manchester City. I've always said we've got to play them twice, and that game was moved right until we play them. I can't say what the title looks like. Did I believe, and have I been believing? Of course. But the West Ham game, I think, was the reality check moment, right? Who we're dealing with. Because when you feel someone breathing on your neck, it's very unnerving and uncomfortable. And you can feel their breath and it's getting heavier, deeper, a bit sweatier even. It's it's squeaky bum time for us. They're
Yes.
relentless and they're coming. And I don't think it's down to them. I think it's about us right now because I don't see them dropping any points. Do you?
Yes, I do actually. City won't win every single game because even
Talk
they,
to me, Ian. Now I like you. Come on.
but so this is why Arsenal, if Arsenal are going to win the league, they're probably going to get beat at City, right? They're probably going to get beat. I think everybody thinks that. Sorry to, most teams lose at Man City anyway, especially towards the end of the season. So it's not wouldn't be that big a shock. But the good thing for Arsenal is that it's still a month away from the end of the season. So there's
Hmm.
still about 4 or 5 games to go after that. So there's enough chance for City to mess up and for Arsenal to keep on going. So if they just can't, whatever happens in that game against City, even if they win, if Arsenal win, they're just going to have to immediately forget about it. That's the best thing they could possibly do. And that includes the fans as well. But it's impossible to do that when you supporters because you can't just turn up if you get a good win or a big defeat. Because I'm sure you've found out after the game at West Ham on Sunday.
Yeah. The reason I put this picture back up again is Anfield 89 is can we do that? Like it was so much harder. Like when people talk about what we have to do, we've got to go to the Etihad. We still have we have other games and they've got games. That game was the game, right? It doesn't get much. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest games if not the biggest game in English football history. If it, how things changed for us. I mean, the juggernaut that was Liverpool. I mean, even as young fans, we used to admire Liverpool players, right? The way you played the game and stuff. City admired now, dazzling, like they're just this beast at the end of the season. It feels like it's gone back to David versus Goliath. Can you see Arsenal cracking the nut there, the same way we did at Anfield in '89?
In terms of winning at Man City or winning the league, or
Winning at
both.
Man City and then what that means.
Well, I mean, they can win at Man City. Brentford won there, didn't they? The other week.
Yeah.
Everton have
Even
won.
Everton got a point, didn't they?
Everton got a point there, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Liverpool were 1-0 ahead and then suddenly remembered that they're not very good and got beat 4-1. That's the thing with City is that once they get on a roll, that's it. They know that no one's better than them at doing that. So you just don't want them to do that. But they do give other teams chances because of the way that they play. So my worry for Arsenal has been, and the last couple of games has kind of shown it, is that they're very, very good at starting games now. But because he hasn't rotated the team as much, perhaps as he could have, whether it's because he just wants to keep the same team on winning games, or he feels as though this Arteta, he feels as though those who are on the fringes aren't quite as good as the ones coming in, which is a problem City don't have because all of their players are almost all at the same level, which is again why they're such a freakish team because no one else can do that. Is that they're just starting to get tired in the last 20, 25, 30 minutes. So at Anfield, didn't see the game against West Ham, but I've been speaking to people who watched it and they said it was almost exactly the same thing happened again. Now, I think it's a good thing you're playing Southampton on Friday because Southampton are probably gone. And I tell you what, if you don't win that game, then forget it, really. So it's a big game in that sense, but I do think Arsenal will win because Southampton are terrible. Um, and then it's obviously the big. Is it next week? Isn't it next Wednesday? Yeah, yeah. So that's the big game then.
A week today, the match of all matches, Ian. You're absolutely right. And yeah, I agree with you. If we don't win that game against Southampton, you can kiss the title goodbye. There's no doubt about it. Okay, I'll get you out on these. Thanks to Ian Doyle from the Liverpool Echo for joining. Arsenal fans, if you want to follow Ian, please do so here.
Say
Liverpool
nice
fans,
things.
if you're
Say nice
listening.
things.
This has turned out a little better than I think Ian maybe was thinking. Ian, have I been nice?
You've been very nice. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Listen, I know how hard it is to be a journalist, but don't do it again. Do you promise?
Well, hey,
Don't.
if I've got the chance to do it again, that's good news for Arsenal, then, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Okay, so at the beginning, I was going to say we've been so similar. Two of my favorite ever players, right? Who didn't love watching King Kenny play, and then of course Mr. Liam Brady.
Hmm.
And then captains as well. Adams, Vieira. You've had Gerrard and Henderson of late, but great captains in the past. Even now, they're comparing our Trossard to your Jota. So I think there's similarities to our clubs when it comes to the footballing side of things, and maybe similarities in the sense that some Liverpool fans and some Arsenal think that we're two proper English clubs who have tried to do it the right way, which is why maybe, we thought Liverpool, who weren't there for 30 years, maybe you would understand a little bit more about our plight and kind of what we're trying to do and where we're going to. And especially we feel like, why would Liverpool fans want City to win the title? Why would Liverpool journalists want City to win the
Oh,
title?
hang on.
Do
I
you
said
want
Arsenal are
Arsenal
going to win
or
it.
City to
I
win the
said Arsenal
title?
are going to win it. It's down in Prince. I reckon
Okay.
Arsenal will win it.
Do you want us to win it over them? Are you
Yeah, I
allowed
think
to
so.
say?
What I would say is this. What I would say is this. From some Liverpool fans that I know, their only gripe with Arsenal is that I think they'd be a little bit jealous of the fact that Liverpool won it in 2020 and it was in the COVID and they couldn't do the whole celebration. So for a lot of fans, it feels as though they never won it. And then the one time that City threatened to slightly go off their best was the one season that Liverpool decided to go and absolutely massively implode, and somebody else has come along and kind of challenged. And I think that's the real reason that any Liverpool fans would get jealous, because otherwise there's no love lost between Liverpool and City because of not even so much things on the, in fact, probably less so things on the pitch than things that happen off it. And obviously, there's only one title contender that's under investigation from the Premier League at the moment. So there you go.
Sorry, not sure what happened there. Liverpool are having a rotten season, and I'm sure you'll bounce back next season. Do you expect to bounce back next season? Just real quick.
I mean, it can't be as bad as this season. I think the fact that they can beat United 7-0, go and win 6-1 at Leeds. They beat Napoli. They've won some of the big games. They beat City twice. So it does show that if they can get a couple of good midfielders in, they'll be challenging with Arsenal for second place behind City again.
Well, I certainly appreciate your candor just a second ago in regards to the bitterness, because I do feel there is quite a bit of that flying around, and just it feels like any opportunity people get to beat Arsenal with the stick, it happens. I think some other fans from clubs may think the same, but there's just something about maybe going invincible and winning the league at White Hart Lane, Anfield, and Old Trafford that gets opposing fans riled up, despite the fact that we haven't won it for 20 years. But I appreciate journalists like you who put themselves out there, and the fact that you were willing to come on the show to talk about your bits and bobs about the Arsenal with me is very much appreciated, Ian. Thanks so much for joining me today.
No problem.
At ease, squaddies, at ease. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.